What's up, everybody? Just want to take a quick second and let people know that I am self-supported. I now put all of my episodes on Substack for paid subscribers. I put them up early, and then 24 hours later, I release them to the public on all my platforms. I also have Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, Buy Me a Coffee, Zelle, a P.O. Box, and Locals, Patreon. And all of the links are in the show notes of every single episode I put out. So look forward to continuing to provide great conversations. And thank you all for your continued support. Well, Martin, we were scheduled for beginning of March, and I saw you logged in early into the Zoom call, and I'm like, well, I'm going to log in if he's available, and we always can talk about something, and so here we are. So I appreciate it, and it was kind of impromptu. And sorry if my hair is looking a little messy. I didn't really have a chance to comb it because I wanted to be on time for this call. But like you said, we might not even be here in a month.
Who the hell knows?
So we, I wanted to tell you because I saw on your X account. You posted about Gonzalo Lira, and the last interview he did, my show was a little bit smaller at that time, but it was with me, and he was on a Saturday and the end of April, and that Monday morning, the video was of him getting cuffed and taken out of his apartment, and I think about him all the time, and he had later gotten out, as you know, and then he died, but yeah, as far as I know, the last conversation recorded was with me. It was 2 hours. And I could send it to you if you want to hear it, because when you go back and listen to it, knowing that was his last conversation online, it was chilling to hear it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate to look at it. It's he was one of one of my sources there in Ukraine. I believe he was the one that exposed that Zelensky was a cokehead. I think he was the first one to do that. But I mean, look, Zelensky's got his little death squads, shuts down any, oh yes, we're fighting for democracy. He refuses to stand for election, shuts down all opposition press. Oh, but he's democracy. You see, we're basically supporting, ethnic cleansing, the same nonsense that Hitler was all about. I mean, if people really picked up the rug and looked.
This episode is brought to you by Vaulted, launched by McIlvaney Financial Group. The simplest and most affordable way to own physical gold and silver. Physical gold is the only asset outside of the control of the government and banking system. They can print dollars, but they can't print gold. Click on the promo link in the show notes or go to vaulted.blbvux.net/coffeeandamike.
Zelensky married a Christian girl. His kids are baptized. It was kind of like Soros pretending he wasn't Jewish. And he was, I believe, part of the neo-Nazi movement. They just hate Russians, period. And only when he became the president, suddenly he's Jewish. And I know people in Israel, they said he's no Jew, But I think he did that basically to hide all the stuff that he was involved in before. I mean, I put, clips on my site that of him on stage as a comedian before being president, joking about confiscating the assets from Russians and Jews. To me, he was just like Soros, pretending he wasn't Jewish, to save his ass and persecuting other Jews.
Yeah, and talking to him, Gonzalo, he knew the risk, and I wish he would have got out, and but he and the United States government, in my opinion, they left him. They left nobody came to help him. Nobody, because he was an American.
Yeah. because they look, I think it was the Telegraph or the Independent in London initially broke the story that um, no Ukrainian Nazi was ever put on trial, and the CIA protected them all simply because they were also killing Russians. So they turned a blind eye to the hundreds of thousands of Jews they killed, Polish, Hungarians. Um, Bandera was promised to be given a country because Ukraine was never a country. Let's put all the bullshit propaganda aside. That's why they became Nazis. Hitler promised to give them a country, and Bandera basically um, got into everything from let's just kill everybody that's here who's not Ukrainian, so it's our country. Ukraine is the motherland of ethnic cleansing, and it's killing the Jews was largely the conspiracy theory back then was that communism was a Jewish conspiracy, and that's why they were after all the Jews, basically. And Ukraine was the worst of all, and they were never put on trial. They were protected by the CIA, and that's why Ukraine was used because they knew their ethnic hatred of Russians. Period. I mean, look, we had two employees there, one in Donetsk and one in Kiev, and they wouldn't even talk to each other. The one in Donetsk did all the translation for our Russian sites and translated the movie The Forecaster into Russian so it could appear on Russian TV. And the one in Kiev, you couldn't bring a bottle of Russian vodka to dinner in Kiev. They would have taken it, smashed it over your head. And there's just no talking to them. And the Russians, what they did to us. I said, do you really understand what happened? First of all, Stalin wasn't Russian. He was from Georgia. Secondly, his number one man that said steal all the food from Ukraine was Jewish, born in Kiev. And what he did to Ukraine was retribution for what they did to the Jews. I mean, and for a long time, it's been debated in Russia, who is really Russian? And that's just the way it is. I mean, that's the true story. Even Lenin, you can look it up. He even wrote a letter saying, do not let Stalin secede me. And it's widely rumored in Russia that Stalin even poisoned Lenin to grab power. So, I mean, let's be honest about all the history here. I mean, it's just nonsense. And everybody keeps twisting it every which way to support whatever they want to do. And it's horrible.
Where does this all sit now in terms of Russia, Ukraine, Europe, and a possible resolution to it?
I'm not real optimistic about it. When when I was called in, I initially thought, all right, I was called and said, you want to come here? We want to give you a briefing on Russia, which I was surprised. I was like, okay, you want to brief me on what you're doing in Russia? So I went, I took my assistant Hannah with me, and then I got there and they said, oh no, she has to leave the room. I said, this is national security stuff now. So they escort her out. Then I was told, will you write the peace plan you think Putin would accept? Um, I said, you want me to write the peace plan? So I did, took 4 days, 15-hour days to get it done. Um,
How big is a document like that,
I
Martin?
also asked,
How big of a document is that?
gosh, I don't even know. I think it's a couple hundred pages. Um, I mean, I laid out everything about Ukraine, how um, how this war started. It wasn't Putin; it was our neocons, um, which in part I think is why I was called in. And but I was also asked. Um, they said, "Can you use your back channels?" I said, "You really want me to do that?" They said, "Yes." All right. And I asked them because I wasn't getting anything in writing. I said, is this sanctioned? Because I was beginning to think that maybe I'm being called in by some clandestine group or something. They said, no, this is sanctioned and you were approved to be brought in. Okay. So I did get it on Putin's desk. 2 days later, Lavrov came out and said, we are not interested in invading Ukraine. I mean, NATO. And naturally, NATO immediately comes out, oh, they're lying. I mean, Russia has no interest in going into NATO. Um, there's nothing there. There's no wealth or anything that you get out of this. Um, and then, to my surprise, um, Trump sent me a letter, which I did post on I think January 15th, uh, thanking me for writing. And it was all on foreign policy, not economics, and says that we will stand behind NATO, which in the meeting, I was surprised, in part being called in because they know my view. And I said, we have to get out of NATO ASAP because they're going to do an article, a false flag to invoke Article 5 to drag us into war. And at that meeting, I was told, yes, we know you're correct. So I think largely I was called in because I'm on the opposite side of the table from the neocons. Mark Rubio came out and said, we stand behind NATO. Okay. So, which was opposite of what I was asked to do. And so getting a letter from Trump was interesting because virtually everything I put in that plan, he has done, except for the NATO stuff. And the last thing was, I mean, the main thesis of it was saying, look, we started this shit, not Putin. Victoria Nuland went over there. We stuffed in our own, our handpicked government, unelected, and they're the ones that started to attack the Donbass on neocon orders. And you had John McCain there at Maidan, overthrow your government. We stand behind you. I mean, can you imagine if somebody from Russia came and stood on the steps of the Capitol, overthrow your government, we're behind you? I mean, that's a violation of international law to begin with. Um, and Victoria Nuland was there handing out sandwiches in Maidan, you know, and there was a leak on the call about who would they would peek, stuff in there for a government. Totally unelected. All right. And, you know, here you have Zelensky and most of the Ukrainians I speak to. They do not believe he was legitimately elected to begin with. Most of them think that that election was rigged. Um, and everything he ran on, oh, peace, vote for me, it'll be peace with Russia. And then he did absolutely the opposite of everything. And refuses to hold elections. That's a dictator. That's not democracy. So he's just a pawn of the neocons and NATO. So I suspect the fact that they even called me in shows that there is a division or a rift within the administration. All right. I think the neocons have been controlling most of the agenda so far. And I think that's why there was no peace proposal, because they don't want peace with Russia. So the main thesis that I put in there, and you can download it from our site, it's free, was that honor the Minsk agreement. That was to allow the Donbass to vote on separating. They have a human right to do so. You look at Czechoslovakia, it's split, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Yugoslavia split, Serbia, Croatia, Montenegro, all along ethnic lines. That whole region is nothing but been conquered so many different times. You got, Orthodox Christianity, you got Catholicism, you've got Islam. I mean, the Ottoman Empire occupied it for a while. So you have all these different groups, and they all basically hate each other. It's not, they don't see themselves as all Ukrainian or Russian or ethnic. It's like more or less like the Middle East. It's the same problem. They don't see, like in Syria, they don't see themselves as Syrian. They see themselves as Sunni, Shiite, Druze, etc. That comes first. And this whole area is the same. You're not going to change it.
How do you think that? What were your thoughts when Trump went to Davos and said what he said to the European leaders? And how does that play a part at all in Russia, United States, Ukraine, and now with Europe?
Yeah, I mean, look, I also said at that meeting, and part of the brief that I did, I warned them. Not only is NATO seeking war, I said the EU is going to stab you in the back. And I specifically mentioned in the meeting Kalis. I said, you got to realize any peace deal you come up with, they are not going to accept it. And I think, look, we have offices around the world. I've had, contacts for a long time everywhere. And so they knew that to even ask me to use my back channels. when they were forming the euro, they came to me. I've probably been involved in more designing currencies than anybody else.
Yeah, because I want to talk to you about currencies too. That's another hot topic right now. But didn't mean to cut you off.
And they, uh, like I've said before, it was Hermit Cole that um, basically sabotaged everything. I sat down, said, okay, fine. Here's how we create a currency. You had to consolidate the debt, create a national debt for the euro. All right. Then you could compete against the dollar. Hermit Cole shot that down. No consolidation of debt. And I know you got a lot of people that say, oh, the dollar is going to crash. They don't know their ass from a hole in the ground.
Let's talk about
All
that,
right.
Martin, because you bring that up. Let's talk about that because that's a hot topic right now. The idea of the dollar is going to crash. Why do you say it's not going to?
Because basically, these people do not understand anything about currency. All right. What makes the dollar the reserve currency? Okay. They are trapped in old theories that no longer work. In the 70s, it was going to be, oh, the dollar is no longer backed, but the dollar went up. So the dollar is backed by, it's a petrodollar now. Okay. If oil is the backing, then why isn't Saudi Arabia the number one currency or Venezuela? They don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. What makes the dollar the reserve currency? All right. It's the American people, and we have a consumer-based economy. So Germany's got to sell their BMWs to America, priced in dollars. Japan has to sell their Toyotas. Right? China is trying to compete to create the yuan as a reserve. What are they doing? They're copying the United States, not Europe. All right. As I said with Europe when I was called in, and they didn't consolidate. All right. All the bullshit then. Oh, the euro is going to defeat the dollar is going to crumble, blah, blah, blah. All right. Bullshit. Didn't happen. All right. I got called in by Mercedes because they believed all this bullshit. Oh, the pound isn't going to be part of the euro. So they shorted a year's worth of sales in British pounds. Oh, because it's not going to be part of the euro. The pound went up, not down. They lost over $1 billion. We got called in to fix that one. All right. Then they sent me off to meet with the board of Daimler-Benz because they had the same trade. They just made these trades based upon newspaper bullshit. All right. Just look at the capitalization of the New York Stock Exchange by itself. All right. You can even ask AI. It is more than the capitalization of all the exchanges in Europe combined. All right. I can pick up the phone and say, buy me $10 billion worth of treasuries. No problem. Europe, I can't. I still have to make the same decision as if the euro didn't exist because the debt was never consolidated. Let's see. Do I want Italy? Do I want France? Do I want Germany? There is no national debt. It's, fine, you got the euro. Oh, sounds nice. Didn't do anything. All right. We have offices in China. I got called into the Central Bank of China during the 97 Asian currency crisis. They are light years ahead of anybody in Europe. All right. And I can tell you that I was surprised to be called in there. I thought, how come they're not calling like an academic from Harvard or something? I went because I went to see the Great Wall. I thought I'd have to listen to some bureaucrats. It'd be boring, whatever. I got there. They were all traders. They had sent these guys out. They worked on the dealing desks of London, Tokyo, New York, and then went back to run the central bank. So when I got back to the United States, both the guys from the Treasury and the Fed called me. Gee, what was it like? You're the first one to meet the central bank. And I just took the knife, stuck it in their back, and I turned it. I said, very interesting. They only hire people with experience. It's so look, the dollar is the reserve currency because the U.S. economy is a reservoir, all right, for capital. You want to park trillions of dollars, this is the only place to do it. You can't go to London. Markets aren't deep enough. Sorry. Canada, really? You got to come to the United States. Look at all the emerging market economies. Even China. China warned the provinces, do not borrow in dollars. They did. They got in trouble because the dollar went up. All right. All these emerging markets. You can go on eBay and you can buy bonds before World War I. China issued bonds in British pounds. Why? Because you had to go to London to raise money. That's where the capital markets were. Today, it's New York. You want to raise money for Bangladesh? You got to come to New York. All this nonsense, the dollar's going to crash. You know how many times I've heard that since the 70s? And it has failed every single time. All right. One of the theories was, the dollar, the debt, it was reaching $1 trillion. They were all freaking out. It's going to crash. So then this theory was, U.S. will go to a $2 tier system. All right. What sent the dollar up dramatically? Because all the Europeans thought we would go to a $2 tier system and the domestic dollar would be worth more than a euro dollar. So they moved all their deposits to the United States. The dollar went up dramatically. I mean, that was 1985. All right. The British pound fell to par. From 240, it collapsed to par, 103. Look, these people constantly, the dollar's going to crash. They've been saying this since the 70s. Please show me one time that they have ever been correct. Never.
What about now with the price? Well, I haven't looked yet this morning, precious metals. I know silver was down early morning when I looked, but the idea that the dollar's collapsing, metals are going up, gold is going up. What do you say to that, Martin?
Look, actually, the dollar was going up, metals were going up. Why? Because when you get into war, the threat of war, capital always flees from wherever the conflict's going to be. Right now, we have a problem as far as the geopolitics is concerned. Korea, Japan, all right, Taiwan, Southeast Asia is getting in trouble. India, Pakistan, Middle East, Europe. Most of you can look at it when they were pretty much deciding that they wanted war with Russia. What's the smart money do? They started buying gold. Okay. This is why the metals went up. It's got nothing to do with inflation. It's got nothing. Oh, the dollar is going to crash. That's all bullshit. All right. World War One, World War Two. The money came here. Why? If you got tanks running down the street, blowing up the banks, are you going to leave your money there? Let's be logical about this. 1896, U.S. Treasury was virtually bankrupt. That's when J.P. Morgan had lent $100 million in gold to bail out the Treasury. All right. So we go from bankrupt to the financial capital of the world after World War One. By World War II, we had 76% of the entire world gold reserves. Europe has blown itself up twice, and they're working on the third time. They are absolutely desperate at this stage. All right. They really think that they can take Russia, get all the assets, which Russia is the richest country in the world from a natural resource perspective. They have about 75 trillion in estimated assets. Gold, diamonds, silver, platinum, palladium, oil, lumber. I mean, you name it, they got it. All right. So, this is what Europe thinks, that if they get that, you've had Kaylis. I put her video on site. Russia's too big and it should be broken up. She's the foreign minister for the EU. I speak to people very high up in France, where they call Macron the petite Napoleon. They really think that they can come out and defeat Russia, even without the United States. NATO just came out, the head of NATO just came out blasting them. There is no way you're going to defeat Russia without the United States. You can look that up. He's just been saying that the last few days. All right. These people really think, they believe their own bullshit. Oh, Russia's weak. Look at this. Ukraine's son, undermined them so much, we just walk in. The propaganda they put out, we have 3.4 million soldiers. Russia has 1. We can walk in. Putin will fall to his knees, beg for his life before we cut off his head. This is the bullshit they're out there saying. All right. And that 3.4 million figure includes the United States and Canada. All right. Look, our computer shows Euro's dead. When Greece got into trouble in 2010, what did the traders do? Immediately, they made a shitload of money shorting Greece. Who's next? Spain. They start attacking others. All right. If California went down, the traders are going to say, who's next? Oh, Illinois. Let's go after them. Oregon. This is the way trading rooms operate. All right. This is the problem behind the euro. One country gets into trouble, it turns into a contagion, brings down the whole continent. I've already been in discussions. They were worried about Italy, maybe Greece again. All right, Spain. I was asked, and plan B is that they will jettison Southern Europe, regroup the euro to just the northern states, and just kick those people out to try and save the euro. This is all about retaining power. Nobody gives a shit about the people or countries. I mean, look, that's nonsense. You think a neocon really cares about the American people? Only he's just got to defeat Russia. You can look up Robert McNamara on YouTube, and he also wrote a book before he died. I think to clear his conscience. Vietnam, 58,000 Americans died. It broke Bretton Woods with inflation. The gold standard collapsed, all because of the neocons. What did he say? We went into Vietnam because we thought Russia was involved. What's he say afterwards? He says, we were wrong. It was just a civil war. All right. These people have never been right once. They have advocated endless wars all the time. What Venezuela was really about, it's not the oil, wasn't drugs or anything else. It was basically just a revision of the Cuban Missile Crisis, because Putin had said he would contemplate sending missiles to Venezuela and Cuba. All right. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, it was classified top secret, but I think it's been declassified since. Everybody thought Khrushchev just backed off with his tail between his legs. Not true. What actually came out of there was Kennedy agreed to pull the Jupiter missiles out of Turkey. It was all classified, so it didn't appear as if the United States was doing anything. And that's been, I think, declassified at this point. It was, the same play all over again. I put missiles in Venezuela. You won't put them in Ukraine. When NATO and Zelensky are saying, oh, we want to be part of NATO, that means you're putting nukes there. That's what that means. We're going to put nukes right on the border, a few hundred miles away from Moscow. I think that, we would get pissed off if they stuck nukes in Venezuela or Cuba again. Look, this thing has been like a football. I mean, back and forth, and it's not all glorious and whatever. You got people that are there who have infiltrated our government, and I believe they have used it for personal vendettas. If you take the Biden administration, you had Garland who went after Trump to try and stop him from winning. You had Victoria Nuland, and you had Blinken, who destroyed the world economy, all right, with the sanctions on Russia, which created BRICS, even threatened China. I mean, all three, look up their backgrounds. All three claimed that their families were from the Ukraine region, and all three claimed that their families were persecuted by Russia. How do three people with the same historical background end up in the same administration and be very anti-Russia, pro-war? Is it personal vendettas? You're taking the country to wage personal wars against Russia for your family? I mean, the press won't talk about the truth on a lot of this stuff. And you can look it up. Google all three of them.
So do you think this, in your view, then, it's going to continue on this path for the immediate future?
My concern is this. I don't think Europe can survive without war. Um, my proposal was to honor the Minsk agreement. Trump has now come out and basically told Zelensky, surrender the Donbass or he will not give any guarantees. All right. If Zelensky cared about his people, he was elected. Look up when he was elected. He promised peace. That's what the Ukrainian people wanted. He's done nothing but destroy their country. All right. The two employees we had, they're now in Berlin and their families. Um, I mean, what is it? Over 15 million have fled Ukraine because of this guy. Um, he just takes his orders from NATO. That's it. Um, NATO is a relic from the Cold War. It should have been shut down when communism collapsed and the Warsaw Pact fell. What did they do? They went to the countries that were part of the Warsaw Pact and added them to NATO. All right. And they're not interested in peace. If peace with Russia actually took place, then why do you need NATO? I've seen the internal memos. You know, when all the money was going to climate change, how do we remain relevant? How do they keep their salaries and their pensions? Only if Russia wants to invade Europe. If they don't want to invade Europe, why do we need them? And now they want 5% of everybody's GDP. 5%. What are you going to do? Fly to Jupiter with that? I mean, it's, I don't know. My concern is, and I will relay this. I'll probably do a letter, but my concern is that they're not about to allow peace. So even if Zelensky says, okay, fine, Russia can take the Donbass, you put in troops into Ukraine along the border, and Russia leaves, okay, or leaves some people there. I can tell you what they're going to do. They're going to say, oh, Russia shot our guy in the foot. That's World War III. This is what they want. It's, you look at the Ayatollah Khomeini, okay? Shaw leaves. It's not good enough to say the enemy is the Shah. He turns it into the enemy is America. All right. That he held the hostages for 444 days. Why? To solidify his own political power. You need an external enemy. Okay. If he just said it's the Shah and the Shah is dead, okay, it's over with. Can we have our stuff back? You need an external enemy. He turned it against America. All right. Europe is doing that to Russia. Why? Because otherwise, go on the Fed site, compare the GDP growth of Europe compared to the United States. It's a tiny fraction. The two economies that are shrinking in the world are Japan and Germany. Whatever stupid decision the European, politicians could make, they did. They shut down businesses for COVID. Then they put sanctions on Russia. All right. German manufacture was the cornerstone. of the EU. It's gone. They are in contraction. The number of possible jobs is declining. You saw tens of thousands of people protesting at Volkswagen. Oh, you can't produce gas cars. We want mostly electric. You know, it's Europe is every decision they have made has absolutely undermined the economic, growth of the EU. Eventually, what's going to happen is that all your pension funds, all of this is at stake. You get one country. You just had France and UK finance ministers actually admit they might need an IMF bailout. All right. France goes down that road. That's what happened to Greece. What are the traders going to do? Again, you don't have a national debt. Our banks, the reserve is U.S. treasuries, not debt from California, Illinois, etc. All right. In Europe, they have to be politically correct. So they have debt from everybody. What will the traders do? France gets into trouble. You're going to have a banking crisis. You're immediately going to look at what banks have the most French debt shorted. All right. Then you're going to have a banking crisis that moves over into a pension fund crisis. All right. This is a mess. All because it was never designed correctly from the beginning. And then what happens? The guys who want to say the dollar is going to crash, really? Have you ever looked outside the United States? So what do you want to do? You want to buy yuan? Maybe you want to buy Japanese yen because Japan's got the worst debt of everybody. Oh, maybe Europe. As that breaks up. What are you going to do? Canadian dollars? You can't have that much money. And Carney's already basically declared World War III in the United States anyhow. Mexico? Where are you going to put serious money? The only place is the United States. Look, when we're the largest institutional advisors probably ever. We've got clients with more than $1 trillion portfolio. You have to understand, why is BlackRock in trouble? Because you get to the point, you have so much money, you can't invest it. So they've been buying real estate. They got a whole bunch of, Ukraine will be there for the reconstruction. They're spreading their money around because they can't put it all in the market. All right. When you get to that size, it's more than, just pick up the phone, buy me gold. You can't put that in the Dow. You can't put that in gold or something like that. You got to basically be diversified. So I talk directly to these clients, and I'm saying we got clients well over $1 trillion portfolios. Sorry, they're looking at the United States because that's where it can be absorbed.
So the summary of this part is the dollar is not going away.
No. It's not going to be replaced by Bitcoin. I mean, come on. I mean, these are things, nonsense theories put out by people that do not understand the world economy. And you look, even managing $1 billion, you can't pick up the phone and say, buy me $1 billion worth of gold. You know what's going to happen to the market? It can't absorb that. All right, it's you got to feather things in. You know, it's not the same thing as an individual, but oh yeah, I pick up, buy me 100 gold. You know, that's fine, right? You're not talking about when you're, dealing with major institutions. It's a completely different atmosphere. What you can do, um, I mean, look, you have to basically deal with size and how to get in and how to get out. All right. That's just the way finance really is.
I want to shift one more thing international, and then I want to ask you one thing domestically. Iran and the carrier groups that have mobilized in the Middle East. I don't see how they can do this. They can bomb. It's looking all indications are that they're about to launch something. But before you answer that, Martin, I look at over the last few years. I haven't been following this obviously as long as you have, but I look over the last few years. Iran had sent in those drones to the Iron Dome in Israel, and I remember what it was. I think it was 3 years ago. It was early summer, thinking this is it, and then it was like a fireworks show, and it ended, and then nothing happened. Last summer, the 12-day war, quote unquote, the United States drops some bombs, Iran fires back, they hit an empty military base, and it was like felt like kayfabe to me. Wink, wink. I'll drop a bomb
Mhm.
here, you drop a bomb there, and that's it. So I don't see how they could do something in Iran right now. With all the factors domestically. What do you think?
Iran is, um, in some ways, it's kind of like Ukraine versus Russia. Okay. You're talking about, in Ukraine versus Russia, you're talking about an ethnic hatred that can't be resolved. In the Middle East, you got people in Hamas that have been grown up from little kids. They just hate Jews. It's not going to say, okay, fine, kumbaya, let's come over and we'll have dinner together. I mean, not going to happen. All right. Iran, um, I'm doing a piece on Iran. Um, as I mentioned earlier, the Ayatollah Khomeini back in 79, in order to uh, solidify his Islamic Republic, because there were an awful lot of domestic people who were against that. All right. He had to demonize the United States. You needed the external enemy. Then uh, he even went as far as to say when the Shah had cancer and he flew to the United States for an emergency um, operation, he was out. That's all bullshit. He went to the United States. They're plotting to put him back on the throne. He said that they stormed the American embassy. Okay. So, what does this come down to? Regime change. Sending a fleet there, maybe not necessary to bomb. Um, you bomb it, you stand a more of a probability of vindicating what this has been all about from day one. America is the great Satan, etc. Um, the only hope they have is putting the fleet out there. It's a psychological aspect to hopefully maybe invigorate the protesters or regime change to overthrow the Ayatollah. Uh, That's the only way you're going to change Iran. You bomb it, you're only going to make them a martyr. I don't see that as achieving the end goal. They everything that the Islamic Republic is about is demonizing the United States. Khomeini originally said the United States is the enemy of Islam. All right. That's the way he framed it. So you got a bunch of people that are easily manipulated. That's just the way it is. In his case, he's manipulated them to think the United States is the great Satan. So how do you change that? Bombing them, I don't think it's going to change it. You're more likely to increase his numbers and support. You can't always deal with somebody based upon what you think. All right. I know the story from World War II where they would catch the Arabs that were helping the Nazis in North Africa, and they would torture them. They wouldn't say anything. And the guy says, "Bring me the biggest pig." Then he says, "Look, you're going to tell me what I want to know. Otherwise, I'm going to kill the pig. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to bury you in the pig's skin, and you'll never see Allah." Didn't have to torture anybody. Okay, so you have to fight somebody based upon what they believe, not what you believe. So you have to understand with Iran, the entire Islamic Republic justification is to hate America. Bomb them, you're only proving what they're saying is correct.
So you don't see that happening, bombing. It's cheaper to
Look,
it's cheaper for the people to rise up, right?
I do know that's one of the aspects that they are looking at. But our neocons are, they believe in world peace by eliminating all your enemies. They're not very smart. I've had dinner with some of these people, and just, I've never been impressed by their intelligence.
Well, the other thing is, shifting domestically, how could the United States even think about something international? Because to me, I mean, they've got their hands full of Minneapolis right now.
Look, it's always the external enemy. Distract people by, it's, I don't think Trump sending the fleet to Iran. I know the backstory to Venezuela, Ukraine. Okay. Biden basically started the whole war with, China and Taiwan. And Pelosi, we had the one China policy where we agreed that Taiwan was part of China. As long as that was in place, China didn't have to go take Taiwan to prove anything. Pelosi flew there, stand up, we're with you. As soon as she did that, you need war now. It's, I don't know if, I wouldn't put it past the neocons for, telling her to go do that, because it was stupid. absolutely stupid. But you know, Minneapolis. I mean, what the politicians are doing there is completely unconstitutional. It's basic. What they're really doing at this stage is staging a revolution themselves to separate. The Constitution says the federal law, and the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. And they're saying, screw you.
It's a civil war, wouldn't you say, Martin?
Yeah, it's,
I see.
look, I mean, look, I've been in discussions in Washington. I am very disappointed in politics anymore. What it has degenerated to the point. If Trump says the sky is blue, and it's blue, they have to say, no, he's lying, it's red. It's gotten to the point that no matter what he says, they must take the opposite view, regardless if it's good, bad, or indifferent. Nobody's thinking about the country, rule of law, or anything. Oh, he sends in ice, we have to get ice. This is part of the decline and fall of the United States, which the computer's also forecasting. You can't have a country that is this divided. And it's only getting worse with each passing month, year, you name it. It's, like I said, it's no longer about anything. I mean, you had Biden. Oh, well, okay, fine. Trump's coming back. Go sell all the materials he had bought for the wall. Make them buy it all over again. Why? You know, here in Florida, in Tampa, the military base is the one that oversees the Middle East. Trump basically told them, first term, devise a plan on how to get out of Afghanistan. Biden comes in. Oh, Trump hired them. Fire them all. Just get out. It was a complete disaster. That's what I mean. Politics has gotten to the point nobody gives a shit about the country or the people. If he says this, I got to say the opposite. You know, so you're going to see Democrats running on anti-ICE. So let me see. Okay. So you support free health care, all this stuff for illegal aliens at the expense of Americans. That's really what you're standing for. You know, and they do get complete free health care. Go to a hospital. If you have no insurance, they're not going to take care of you. If it's an emergency, they got to do some things here in Florida. But if you're an illegal alien, oh, they don't have anything, so we have to give them everything. It's crazy. You wouldn't get that in any other country.
Yeah, and I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and I don't remember the name. He just finished reading a book, and I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, and I want to get it and read it. But he was basically saying in the book, was talking about war, and when the rule of law is just ignored now in a lot of cases, and this is an example of it. And how do you? I don't know if you can get it back on track, but it usually, I don't know if it always, but leads to violence at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is basically what it comes down to. And it always leads to violence, and it leads to the breakup and resentments and things of this nature. I mean, California to me now looks like a foreign country.
What should this administration be doing in Minneapolis? Because to me, if this thing is not if they don't get a handle on this quickly, it's only going to get warmer in places like that and every other city. The only benefit I look at is being in Phoenix. In the summer, it's 118 here, so that does slow them down. I think a little bit, maybe. But everywhere else, I mean, the protests are during the summer, and I mean, you get these morons, in my view, that are out there in 20 below in Minneapolis, which isn't a funny, Martin. There's no Somalians out there protesting. I find that ironic. they're People say that they're stupid people. I don't think they're that stupid. I mean, they're not out there at 20 below. Like,
No, look, they've finagled everything. I mean, it's
they stay warm. They're staying in their free apartment. But you can this has the potential to explode in every city across the country in not that long, 4 to 6 weeks.
look, the computer basically showed that 26 was going to be the start of major civil unrest. This is what makes when our computer said we're going into World War III. Okay, it's not the same as World War I or II. It's not us against a single adversary. All right, you're seeing this everywhere. Taiwan, Korea, Japan, Southeast Asia, Middle East, and they're all independent. Okay, but it's almost as if somebody put something in the water to get everybody pissed off or something. I don't know. But whatever old grudges there used to be, they're all surfacing now. And usually what accelerates that is the economic decline. And you have, I've warned before on your show where the U.S. would go into stagflation, Europe would go into more of a depression. Why? Because there's a shortage of basically goods. I mean, even silver. All right, China's shut off exporting silver. Trump is saying he's going to buy 2.5 billion to build up a reserve. All right, there's actually a real shortage of silver. All right, you go down the line. I mean, food, things of this nature. You had the politicians with the COVID. I spoke to one farmer. He had to kill 30,000 chickens. Why? Because he couldn't get trucks to bring him food, and he couldn't get trucks to send the chickens to market. So then they're all going to starve to death. Then you have the politicians. Oh, they're greedy. Look at the price of eggs. You idiot. You're the one that started this shit. Okay. Nobody could get chickens to market. They died, whatever. And then there's a shortage of eggs, and then you want to blame them for being greedy? Look, I mean, even most of your Democrats are still trying to use the same thing that FDR won in 1932 for. Get the rich. All right. Even Gavin Newsom has been having to start, backing down a little bit. This idea, oh, well, we're going to tax all the billionaires 5%, but it's only going to be one time. They don't even understand the economy either. You think this is all cash? All right. You under Amazon, okay, fine, I want 5%. He's going to have to sell the stock. You do this to all these big companies, you really think the stock market's going to go up? It's going to crash because everybody's going to jump in front of them. This is what I mean. These people have no concept of the financial markets, how they function. Zero. Absolutely zero. That's one of my most frustrating things. I mean, how many times I've been called in to a crisis. It's always the same stupid thing. You know, in the 80s, the bankers were selling them, oh, get your mortgage in Swiss francs. It's half the interest rate. You'll save money. Then the Swiss franc goes up and they owe 20% more in their house. China, same problem. I mean, the euro. I met with the Central Bank of Switzerland when they had the Swiss euro peg. I said, the peg's going to break. Oh, well, we think we can hold it. I said, really? I said, you know, I think history's on my side. Nobody's been able to do this yet. All right. I walk out. Okay. They think I'm talking to an academic who's in charge of it. No trading experience. All right. The peg breaks. They got FX Street named me for, FX forecaster of the year or something. It's always the same thing. I just seen it so many times. It's like an individual has the capacity to learn from your mistakes. A government does not. Why? Is because it changes. The people that I got called in with to fix the euro, back in 98, they're gone. You got a new crew in there. Oh, gee, we promised to do that. You can start all over again. It's very frustrating.
Are you even looking at the midterms right now?
We ran something on them and it showed very, very tight race. It did not show either side with some grand, overwhelming majority. Cyclically, I would have to say we're going into a steeper recession between 26 to 28. I would think that I would have to run the computer, but I would say from an opinion perspective, I wouldn't be surprised if the Democrats evened it out or got a little bit more. And then the way politics is, whatever Trump does, we have to do the opposite. It's just a mess. Complete mess.
Do you think if the civil unrest spikes up, increases to a higher level than where it is right now, that would have an impact from an economic standpoint, right? To have it's not only a recession, but a very deep one, if not a depression, if this really gets out of hand?
No, look, a depression and a recession, what's the difference? Okay. If you look at the Great Depression, what really made it so great was in 1931. Virtually all of Europe, South America, and most of Asia defaulted on their sovereign debt. Okay. You can take the stock market down 50%. That's really not a big deal. All right. It may cause a recession. You take the bond market down. Now you're talking depression. Why? The bond market implicates everything. This is why the 2008 to 2010 was the Great Recession. Why? Because it wasn't confined to stocks. It was the real estate market. Real estate impacts everybody. Stocks impact the investor group. 1903, they called it the rich man's panic. Okay, stock market went down. The rich lost a bunch of money. We're okay. All right. It's the debt market. That's the real critical issue. You screw with that. That's what makes the difference between a recession and a depression. You wipe out the banks, over 9,000, or the bond market, over 9,000 banks failed in the Great Depression. That's their reserves. Gone. All right. And back then, even Goldman Sachs, they were selling foreign debt to moms and pops. Oh, look, you can get 20% from Germany. Then they default. They lost all their savings. More people got wiped out from the debt crisis than the stock market. Debt is generally about 10 times, 10 to 1 on the equity side. So that's why I say we're heading into a sovereign debt crisis. Europe is a basket case, so is Japan. All right. Um, all these people that talk about, oh, the dollar is going to crash. Oh, look at the debt. It could be 50 quadrillion. That's not the issue. As long as you continue to sell the next tranche, the can keep going down the road. It's when you can't sell the new debt because we're in a Ponzi scheme. All governments are. You issue the new debt to pay off the old. Okay. When you can't sell the new debt, guess what? That's when you get the default. That's what's coming down. Then you form new governments. They'll all create new governments. Euro will probably break up again, back to individual states. You can't get a politician to listen, largely because I've even heard it. Well, why should I worry about something from 20 years from now? I'm not going to be here. They don't give a shit about the country. They don't. China does.
Do you still think this is a ways off? Like the breaking up of the EU and so yeah.
Probably from 29 on.
But the dollar, because of what you talked about, because these countries have nowhere else to go, they're going to park their money here, and then the dollar will just the debt will continue to be sold, is what you're saying.
Well, no, eventually they will go away from the debt side. Okay. And they'll go into more of the private debt and assets in the United States. One of our clients is a very major pension fund. Okay. They started selling off the government debt and moving to private AAA corporates. S&P came in and said, oh, you're taking on more risk. They said, no, we're not. We use Armstrong economics and we verified what he said. The risk is government, not private sector. If General Motors goes bust, what happens? All the assets go into a bankruptcy auction and they're sold. You get something back. A government default, it's unsecured. You get nothing. Zero. That's the difference between sovereign debt and private. Go private, be careful about government. Stay away from the states, because when one state gets in trouble, it will be like Greece all over again. Who's next?
It's going to be a rocky year, huh? 26 is going to be a rocky year.
26 to 27 is going to be very, very interesting. I'm just glad I'm not 18.
Why do you say that?
Why? Because basically, I think you're going to see people more. In Europe, they're all drafting. They're getting ready for drafts. And they've been taking people, staff from Germany. They said somebody who was even 60 years old was told to report. So I teased my friend and had to go back to Germany to pick up some stuff. I said, don't stay there too long. You're going to get your ass, you'll be drafted. Um, but, look, to me, this whole thing, I don't know how to, look, I ended up in this field. That's why I say accidentally. I'm the accidental economist. Um, I just had I had a client years ago in the 70s. He knew I understood currencies. They just started trading in 72. It was Franklin National Bank, which started MasterCard. And they went down in 1974 from a 10% move in the Italian lira. He knew I understood currency. Nobody else did. And he said, would you come take a look at this? I think it's something you know about. And that's what it was. So after that, every currency crisis, you name it, I was called. They're forming the G5 in 85. I'm called in. It's forming the euro. There isn't a single one I haven't been called to. Asian currency crisis. I wrote to Ruben. I said, basically, shut up. You're going to cause a crash. I wrote to him in June. Within 4 or 5 weeks, the Asian currency crisis takes place. I'm called into China. I probably have more experience than anybody. It's been going on from the 70s. To me, this is all like Groundhog Day. I've just seen it over and over and over again. Are we going to do this again? That's what I mean about government is incapable of learning from the past. They just repeat the same stupid mistakes over and over again. And that's why I don't know how the hell I ended up in this field. It just sometimes they're just like, what the hell? How did I get here?
Where can people find you, Martin?
ArmstrongEconomics.com. We try to keep it as an open source. You don't have to put emails in, anything. We don't sell advertising. It's trying to help the world in this period of absolute insanity.
As always, I appreciate you doing this. This wasn't even scheduled, so I'm glad we just, turned it on and talked for. There's so much. There's always something going on. So,
Oh, yeah.
I look forward to the next conversation, Martin.
All right. Take care. Talk to you later.
Mic drop.